Hey, y'all, there is always so much going on behind the scenes. I wish that someday I'm going to show y'all what goes on behind the scenes. Happy Sunday. Happy March 26th. Happy almost at the end of this beautiful stage that we are in, the sacral stage, the 18-month to 3-year old stage. Hi, y'all. I am Coach Yolanda, owner of Evolving Spirit Wellness. We come together on Sundays at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to meditate. This, for Evolving Spirit Wellness, is the year of the inner child. Inner child work is so essential to discovering who you are now. You have to look at the developmental building blocks that created this version of you. And yes, we mature, and yes, we experience life, and we go through different things that may not always have a connection to something that happened in our past. But many of the lessons that we learned, many of the things in the energy in which we developed, ap- absolutely impact us now as adults. And so we'd like to take examinations. We like to look at what's going on, the thoughts, the feelings, the behavior, to see if we're fooling ourselves. You know, it's really detective work to see if you have been telling yourself the truth, because you may not have been. And so this month we looked at shame, we looked at courage. Last week was my favorite. No. Today we're going to look at freedom. But before we get there, I just have to let y'all know, grandbaby girl is here. So if y'all hear some knocking in the background, because she's trying to get in here, and maybe we'll let her in a little bit later. But for right now, all attention is on you, on where you are, how you are. You can put it in the chat. Just know that this is being recorded. So whatever you type, whatever you ask, whatever you share will be shared with whomever watches this on my Facebook channel and my YouTube channel. And so I am grateful that we have this opportunity to come together every Sunday. It sets the mood for me for the week. I hope that it does the same for you. If you are watching any of the replays, don't worry about, where we are at any particular moment. I trust that whatever you hear is going to come at the time in the place that you need to hear it. And so today, as we are wrapping up the developmental stage, 18 months to 3 years of age, it's so interesting to me because grandbaby girl is almost 3. So I'm watching her as we talk about this developmental stage. I'm watching her and I'm looking at all of the things that we have been talking about coming to into reality. The shame, the courage, the no. Grandbaby girl does not like to be shamed. And who does? No one does. And I'm watching how she's reacting to being told no. She don't like it. None of us do. But I'm also watching this courage develop in her, courage to do new things, courage to do things that she was absolutely afraid of just a couple of months ago. And that is something that will serve her well across her lifespan and that we want to encourage her to do. And today, as we talk about freedom, I'm watching her in her element, being free. There is nothing like watching children just be free, where they're not worried about what they look like, sound like, how much noise they're making. They are in the moment. And we could learn a lot of lessons by watching children and by remembering that that's still within us. You went through this developmental stage, we all did. And there was a time in your life where you weren't worried about what people were saying, what you looked like, who was present, who wasn't. You just lived your life to mind your business. You know, a lot of what we can learn from this developmental stage is how to be free, which is why we're talking about freedom today. And I have the revealing word dictionary of metaphysical terms. I every time I have to look up a word, I always think about Brother Malcolm X and how he dissected the dictionary and essentially said, a lot of the definitions are incorrect or give you the impression that things are not as they seem. And so I like to have different dictionaries. This is a metaphysical dictionary. And so looking up the term freedom, it says freedom is the quality or state of being without thought or restraint. So think about that. Your state of being without you overthinking, without you feeling limited, without you feeling or experiencing any limitations, without restraint, bondage, limitation, or repression. If you think about that in those terms, where are you restrained? Where do you feel like you're in bondage? Where do you feel limited? Where do you feel like you're being repressed? I'll go on. Having a sense of complete well being, that sounds delicious. It is a result of regulating one's life according to principle, principle being capitalized, principle meaning spiritual universal law, not according to what anyone else may think or say. That is the metaphysical definition of freedom: complete well being, without restraint, without limitation, regulating. And that is what goes on in this developmental stage. Little children, 18 months to 3 months, are learning how to regulate themselves, learning how to balance, learning how to process all of this information, and recognizing the power that they hold. And if we are not careful, we really have to recognize that this developmental stage creates the building blocks for self-esteem and self-value along our lives. If a child constantly hears, you're a bad boy, you're a bad boy, you're a bad boy, trust and believe that that will be the building block in which they will build their self-esteem. If that's the way that the world sees me, if that's the way that the adults that I trust see me, then that must be what I am. So let me live up to it. So we have to be careful. Even the other day, there was a mother talking about her 1 year old. Oh, he's so bad. And I'm thinking, what could a 1 year old who hasn't lived life long enough be doing that could be considered bad? So we have to make sure that the information that we're giving children at this developmental stage is not damaging them, because I guarantee you, whether it was intentional or not, we all received messages that may have created building blocks for our self esteem. They aren't always verbal messages. Sometimes the nonverbal communication, children can sense when the adults are stressed, when the adults are tensed up, and they will internalize that as somehow being their fault or something wrong with them. And so all of these things may have happened in our experience when we were in this developmental stage, and it created these blocks that we started to build by the time we turned 5 and 4 and 6 and 7, 8, 9, and into our teenage years. All of the things that we were processing and regulating and absorbing can create certain belief systems that might do exactly what the definition of freedom keeps from us. We might feel restraint, we might feel bondage, we might feel limitation, and we might feel repression. Freedom releases you from that because you are no longer operating according to what anyone else may think or say. A state of being without thought or restraint. Now, that doesn't mean that we're out here just doing, God knows what. It does mean that you feel true in your skin, true in your body to think, feel, and behave in accordance with who you believe yourself to be, not the facade, not the mask, not what everybody else says you should be doing, but what you consider to be the state of complete well being. I know I want to be in a state of complete well being. So I'm looking at freedom as the way in which I do that. I'm looking at where am I limited? Where do I feel restraint? Where do I feel in bondage? And a lot of those things are also connected to the area that we talked about 2 weeks ago, shame. That's where I feel most limited. Those places where shame still has a hold on my mindset. I have to tell you, our conversation about no, I watched myself this week. I really, really watched myself last week where I may have been told no. And so old Yolanda, so this was the experience. Someone sent me an email and they were like, you need to watch this because you've been doing something that could raise questions to other people. Old Yolanda would have started to defend herself, feel worried. What did I do? You know, all of these different things. New Yolanda was like, oh, thank you so much for that information. That was it. No further discussion necessary. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't go into a shame spiral to see what I did. What they were giving me was information about something that I was unaware of. I thanked them for the information and kept it moving. A lot of times when we are living with shame in our bodies, anytime we hear a course correction, we think it's a criticism or a judgment about who we are personally. Sometimes people are telling us things that we need to hear. Sometimes people are telling us things that we don't need to hear. We have to have the discernment to understand that none of it is personal and what things are for your good and what things are not. That's where your discernment comes in. And there's no need for you to pull along a defense attorney everywhere you go, trying to prove and validate that you're a good person or that you didn't mean it that way. No can be okay to hear. When we're kids, we don't know that. We internalize that. And so the things we've been talking about, the shame, the no, and even the courage are all a part of that regulation and balancing process. And so if you hear a no, if there is some shame in present day as an adult, it could be attached to the lesson that you learned, the building block that was set oh so long ago when you were a toddler turning into a 3-year old, 4-year old, and 5-year old. And as we get to the next developmental stage where we see kids in their full autonomy, going off to kindergarten, going off to first grade, and really being responsible in ways that they had never been responsible before, that's when the heat gets turned up. But we cannot ignore the building block, the foundation of that. How do I feel now? And how is it going to impact me later? Somewhere we pick up these messages. And most of the time, those messages come when we are not mature enough to process it appropriately. A 3-year old is not mature enough to process all of that information appropriately so that they can regulate themselves. So, what happens? We internalize it. I must be bad. There must be something wrong. I can't do anything right. People are always yelling at me, or people are always correcting me, or I'm always getting separated from the group, or I'm always my name, my name, my name. You know, I can tell you right now, when I'm in a store and I hear a mother constantly saying their child's name, I can tell whether or not that's a regular practice or whether that's a one time thing because you can hear it in the mother's voice. Like, if I have to call this child one more time, just, think back to when you heard your mother, just disappointment in her voice. That can crush a child. And many times it did impact us in that way when we thought that we disappointed a caregiver, an adult, an authority figure. Again, those are the building blocks that even as an adult, if you hear someone saying something to you, it could make you feel like, did I disappoint them? Are they disappointed in me? Where is that coming from? Because I'm way too mature to be thinking that I'm out here disappointing everybody all of the time instead of having clarifying conversations with adults. So if someone says something to me, I don't have to take it personal. I can take it maybe as constructive criticism or something that I don't need to listen to. But I don't have to let it crush me to the point where I have to prove myself, where I have to consistently defend myself, or where I'm ready to fight. Because for many of us, things hit us in such a way where we're reacting so quickly, we don't even recognize what has been said. Someone says something, we hear something else, and now we're ready to fight. And so if you are finding that any of those experiences are happening to you as adult, then I invite you to go back. If you can remember this time in your life of what may have been going on around you with your family, where did you live, who was taking care of you, were they kind, were they, loving and nurturing? Because one of the things that children need in order to regulate and process all of this information, children need to be affirmed, children need to be assured, children need to feel good about themselves, and not in the way that it's always pleasing to adults. I find myself, even with grandbaby girl, having to say, well, thank you for standing up for yourself. I understand that you feel like it's not time to go to bed. And I want to support her in developing her own voice, even if it means we have to have a discussion about why it's not appropriate to be up at 10:30 at night, grandbaby girl. We got to go to sleep. But I don't want her to think that because of who she is, I'm trying to limit, restrict, or keep her in bondage. But I know she's going to feel that way. But children have to be affirmed. Adults have to be affirmed and reassured. We can do that for ourselves. And so this is the inner child work where we can tell our inner 3-year-old, trust me, it's not you. You are in a world that you don't understand, and you're doing the best that you can to regulate the information that you're receiving. I'm an adult now. I got this, and I can do this for you. And so, one of the things that I have to tell myself from time to time, particularly when it's shame, particularly when I'm embarrassed about something, nobody even has to know it. Sometimes I'm just holding the shame with myself. I have to remember and tell myself, Yolanda, this feeling that you're experiencing right now, where you're talking to yourself crazy, where you think the world is about to end, this might be connected to something that you learned a long time ago. It may not be as bad as you think it is. I've said before, I come from a long line of women who knew how to worry. They worried about everything, things that never happened, things that might happen, always constantly worried and always feeling anxious and, on alert at all times. So to calm and regulate my nervous system, I have to remind myself this feeling of embarrassment, of shame, of disappointment, it's probably not as bad as you think it is. And it's probably connected to something that happened to you a long time ago. Please give your nervous system some rest. Please recognize and realize that you have a tendency, Yolanda, to blow things out of proportion first and then come down. How about we do something different? How about we don't take it personal? How about we take a breath and free ourselves from the resistance, the limitation, the worry, the fear, and all of the other things that we take ourselves through? That begins so young in our development. It becomes the course of how we process information. But we can change that course. We can calm our nervous system. We can let our inner children breathe and feel free by saying, as a full-fledged adult who doesn't need anyone telling them what to do, I don't need a chaperone. As a full-fledged adult, I can hear information and process it appropriately. I don't have to take it personal. And for those of you who have ever read the book, The Four Agreements, that is one of the four agreements. Don't take anything personal. Do not absorb all that you process and then create some character flaw around it. Listen to what is being said. Be mindful of what it does to your body and understand that whatever it is, you can figure it out. Now, there are some things that come into our life experience that we do not have control over. We do not have control over other people's behavior. We do not have control over when people are going to be born and when people are going to transition. Those are things that we don't have control over. But we do have control over our thoughts, our feelings, and behavior. It takes a lot of work to get there, which is why we are doing this type of work. This is part of the practice. Where do I need to work? I need to look at my relationship with no. I need to look at my relationship with shame. I need to look at my relationship with courage. What is the last courageous thing that I can remember doing? And I would, gamble to say that there are a lot of courageous things that we are all doing on a day-to-day basis that we don't even affirm, that we don't even acknowledge for ourselves. And we have to start doing that. My birthday is coming up next month, and I'm amazed that I'm still here with all of the things that I have experienced and all of the things that I have seen, the heartbreak, the hopelessness, all of that, and I'm still here. I have to congratulate myself on the courage to keep going. I have to congratulate and celebrate those courageous moments. But sometimes we are so filled with other stuff that we don't even make time to celebrate ourselves, to pat ourselves on the back, to affirm ourselves, to recognize and acknowledge just how wonderful we are. So if you take a look at your relationship with courage and whether you are willing to give yourself that title, then I ask and offer that you also take a look at your relationship with freedom and what that feels like for you. Do you think it's just some, you know, dream or vision that may or may not be yours? Do you feel free in your workplace? Do you feel free in your relationships? Do you feel free with your family, without your family, with your friends, without your friends? Where do you feel the most free and where do you feel the most restricted? And then ask yourself, why am I living with this experience of restriction and limitation? Why would I do that to myself? As a full fledged adult, why would I tell myself that I have to be in bondage, that I have to be repressed, that I have to be restrained, and that I have to worry about what other people say and what other people are doing? Why do I do that to myself? And I know that for many of us, it comes in different ways. It may feel like I am feeling limited on my job because there are particular things that I want to do and they won't let me do it. Or I do feel limited in my relationship because I would love to have more open and honest communication with my, partner, but they just won't do it. Well, you have to ask yourself, are you okay living with that limitation? Or do you want some more freedom? Are you ready to celebrate more freedom coming into your life? And I'm not telling anybody to leave any situation that they're in. I'm saying what you can control is your mind, your body, and your spirit. And if you want to align that with freedom, then the choices that you make have to be aligned with that type of thinking, with the type of thinking that says, I need to be completely well in my being. I need to be healthy in my mind, in my body, and in my spirit. I need to be free to think, to feel, to behave in ways that are pleasing to me. I don't know about y'all, but I got a lesson, in my youth about the word sacrifice. My mother loved that word, sacrifice. I sacrifice this, I sacrifice that, because I believe that many of us think the more we sacrifice, the greater our reward in heaven. My heaven is here, in the here and now, where I am living and breathing. The sacrifices that I make are aligned with the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors that I am also okay with making. I don't feel like I have to sacrifice my freedom and my pleasure for other people. I have learned, and I'm still learning, how to say no gracefully. I am still learning how to hear no gracefully. and recognize that I deserve that. I deserve to be well in my spirit. I shouldn't have to go to bed and I shouldn't have to wake up feeling like I'm obligated to do particular things that are not in alignment with the me that I know that I am. I cannot feel like I'm in bondage. I cannot feel limited. When I hear limitation, it makes my skin crawl. Now, there are times when there are particular things, again, that I can't control, that you can't control, that we just will not be able to control. But I always recognize what our dear Mandela said when he was in prison for 27 years. He said, they could have locked up my body, but they never locked up my mind. That remained free. And if one man, if several people can go through their life feeling like they may be physically restrained, but in their mind they are free, how come we can't do it in our day-to-day living where we may not be incarcerated, but we still might be limited and incarcerated in our mind and in the way that we're thinking? Why are we afraid of freedom? Why are we afraid of courage? Why are we afraid of the word no? And why would we let shame enter into our life in such a way that creates those limitations? We have to go back to where it began. And that's this developmental stage, which is connected to our feelings and how we feel about ourselves. There is a split that occurs at this time in our life where we are learning to become independent, but we still are dependent upon caregivers to do particular things for us. And there's a battle that sometimes goes on. You got to get out the house in the morning and people want to be slow because they want to dress themselves. And you're like, today is not the day. And so there's a battle. And sometimes misinformation is passed between the young person and the caregiver. Sometimes you can be independent, baby. Sometimes you can't. 3-year-olds can't process that appropriately. And so that misinformation turns into a belief system that I might not be okay. I may not be able to take care of myself. Maybe I'm not good at doing these things that everybody says that I am good at. It starts to eat away at their self-esteem and their self-value, because there is this separation that is happening. They're recognizing and realizing I don't need the big people's help all the time. I can do it myself. And sometimes that translates into characteristics as adults that still say, I can't do this by myself. So there's lack of courage. Or I should be able to do these things by myself, but I can't. And shame develops. Or I tried to do this thing by myself and it didn't work. So an aversion to the word no develops. Or I can't trust anybody except for myself. And so I don't want any help. All of those different things could go on. Hello, my dear. How are you? All of those different things can get developed in this age, in this developmental stage. And so we have to be very clear as adults. Are we still operating like 3-year-olds? So I will admit, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do go in a shame spiral. Sometimes there is a lack of courage to speak up, to do things, to ask questions, because I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I don't feel free. Sometimes I do feel limited in my thinking. Sometimes I do feel restrained when I want to do stuff and the conditions to do those things are just not present. And so taking a look as adults at what your relationship is with these things: shame, courage, no, freedom, limitation, resistance. How do you respond? Are you responding similar to a 3-year-old where you're having tantrums, or you just shut down? I saw that one earlier today. Grandbaby girl shut all the way down. It was like the switch just went off, fell to the ground, and was like, I'm done. And sometimes we do that as adults where we just emotionally shut down, shut out. We don't even want to address the issues as they are coming. So we have to be very, very clear. When this definition about freedom talks about complete well-being, that means feeling everything. That doesn't mean numbing. That doesn't mean emotionally unavailable. That means I am willing to feel everything, even if it is temporarily uncomfortable. I have to be willing to feel it. And so that's what we're going to meditate on today: freedom. I want my freedom. And I want you to have more freedom in the way that you think about yourselves, in the way that you feel about yourself. Sometimes when we're children, we're not even given freedom to think about ourselves in a particular way. I can remember adults wanting to question why I was laughing or smiling or what you're so happy about. Sometimes we question children why they are experiencing things the way that they desire to experience them, because we want to control it. We want to limit it. We don't want them to experience pleasure. We don't want them to get excited about particular things. We want to be so careful that we're keeping them safe. Sometimes we are keeping them limited. And so when you think about your experiences with freedom and how much freedom you feel you have now and how much freedom you desire now. I know I want the freedom to love whoever I choose to love. I know I want the freedom to be by myself if I choose to be by myself. I know I want the freedom to sing whatever I want to sing and go places wherever I want to go. I want to have the freedom to think of myself not as the world sees me, but as I see me and as I desire to be. I often joke and say, if I want to run away and join the circus tomorrow, I want to feel like I'm free to do that. I don't want to feel like I have to limit myself because of my age, my race, my gender identity. I don't want any limitations in my life unless it's for my highest good. I don't want anyone coming into my life to restrain me. That is the best way to end a relationship with me. Anything that sounds like a limitation or restraint. Can't do it, won't do it, not interested. I am so sure about who I am that if I hear something that is contrary to it, I'm not interested. I want the kind of freedom that if I hear no, or if I'm in a dark moment, or if I'm in a challenge, I'm still experiencing joy. That I don't feel like, and I used to hold this belief system that if something difficult was going on in my life, then somehow I needed to wear black, be sad, and I did not have the right to be happy or experience joy until that dark moment passed. That was the limitation that I placed upon myself. I am grateful that in my life, I don't have anyone in my life limiting me in any way. If there are limitations, they're all self imposed. And so that is why I do this work. And that is why we are going to meditate on freedom. We want to feel it in our bones. You want to feel it in your blood. You want to have that feeling of being so free that your no means no, that your yes means yes. And if you want to change your mind, you can. So let's take a deep breath and come into this right now moment. This is a good moment. This is a great moment. This is a blessed and sacred moment for you, for us, for all who are listening to take a deep breath and request from the universe, the God of your understanding, spirit, divine, whatever names you decide to hold dear to your heart, to request more freedom in your life. That if there are places where you feel an imbalance because you are trying to regulate, maybe it's so much stress in your life right now and you want to be free from it. Ask for that support to come from the universe, to come from your ancestors, to come from your spirit guides, to come for all who are going to affirm and assure that you are in a complete state of well being. And so let's envision ourselves in the most free place that you feel. Maybe it's in a field, maybe it's at the beach, the shore, whatever you call it. Maybe it's in the air. Maybe it's in a place that you have not even visited in reality, but in your dreams, you envision it and you feel free there. There are no timelines. There are no, things that you have to submit and turn in. There is no 9 to 5. There is no way to clock in, clock out, and all of those things that sometimes give us anxiety because we recognize that we feel like we're under control of some great system that seems beyond us. Go to that place in your mind. Maybe you're in a relationship where you feel restrained or restricted because you cannot express yourself. Maybe you feel like you're in a family dynamic where you got to walk on eggshells so you don't set people off. Remove yourself from that feeling and come into the feeling of full freedom where your mind is clear. Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Where your mind is clear of all of the obligations, all of the sacrifices, all of the things that you have been told you have to do that somehow and sometimes disrupt the things that you desire to do. Maybe there's a physical limitation, either through illness or through some other dynamic in your life experience. You feel physically limited. There is energy present that can affirm and that can assure you that the assistance that you need to free yourself from those limitations can be provided. We all require assistance in some shape, some form, just as young children need assistance to grow and develop. Adults also continue to need assistance to grow and develop. And so that might be your way to freedom by asking for help, by looking into the assistance that will help you so that you are not feeling as limited. It might be physically, it might be mentally, it might be emotionally, it might be spiritually where you feel limited because maybe there is a system that you were born into that you feel that you are outgrowing. But your family's got a stronghold on you. They're like, where you think you going? This is what we've been doing since the beginning of time. We worship here, we gather here. And maybe your spirit is feeling a calling in some other direction because it feels limited where it is. And you want to engage in more discovery of what it means to be a spiritual being. But there are limitations based upon the organization, based upon the family dynamic, based upon so many different things that might be going on. And you may be feeling or experiencing that I don't want to disappoint the people that love me and that I love. Let us remind ourselves that we are also the people that love us and we don't want to disappoint ourselves. And so perhaps that is what freedom is looking like for you. That you have to become aware that you are a separate individual, unique. There is no one else like you anywhere else in the universe. You a one-time deal. And so if there are things going on in your life, whether it be interactions, relationships, obligations that don't feel aligned to the unique individual that you are, and you are seeking freedom, then you have to ask for it. You have to believe that it is available to you, and you have to create it in your mind first. So go to that place created in your mind of where you are the most free, where there are no deadlines looming. There's not a stack full of work that needs to be done. There's no expectations based upon how old you are, where you're at in your life, and people trying to figure out, what are you doing now? What are you working on? When are you getting married? When are you having kids? All of the things that others impose upon you as being part of your life experience. This is your life. And you get to decide what freedom looks like. Maybe you are experiencing some financial challenges that have kept you or keep you in a particular position or place in your life where you feel limited. And you knew that if you had a different financial experience, freedom would be yours. You got to free your mind first from that state of being of lack. And if other people are making you feel as though you are not enough because you're not where they believe that you should be, then maybe the freedom that you are needing is getting away from that toxic environment. Sometimes when we are in toxic environments, we can't grow appropriately. So maybe the financial abundance that you are seeking cannot happen because you are in an environment where it's just not possible. You have to think of it in terms of you can place as many plants in soil as you desire. If the environment, if the soil is not conducive to growth, it's not going to happen. And so you might be looking for more apples on your tree, but you're in an environment where that's not going to happen because you're not being nurtured. You're not being given what you need to be given to grow, just like a child. You're not being affirmed. You're not being reassured. You're not being supported. So, how is anything supposed to grow in that type of environment? You need some freedom. And it begins in your mind, where you can feel it in your body, that no matter what might be going on around you physically, whatever chaos, whatever confusion may be going on around you, within you, you are working towards being in a complete state of well being. It's the quality of your life. Is the quality of your life such that you would include freedom in its description? I'm free to be me. I don't have to hide. I don't have to pretend. I'm aware of who I am. I'm not moving based upon how other people move. I am clear and I am sure, and I'm not internalizing other people's stuff as somehow personally connected to me. I am clear about who I am, and I am open to changing if necessary, because that's where the regulation comes in. So, as we are thinking about those places where we feel the most free, take a look at the elements that are present that support the regulation that is necessary, the balance. What do you need for balance, and do you have it in your life now? Are you willing to create it? Are you willing to identify and recognize that when feelings come up, they could be connected to an old memory that you have long forgotten about? And it can become alive again in your body, in your spirit. But because of who you are and how you are calling in more freedom, you are able to process it differently. A lot of what we're talking about today is regulating and processing information differently with more freedom. How can I free my mind from this overthinking? How can I free my mind and my behavior from this people pleasing? How can I free my mind from this pit in my stomach that makes me feel like I'm not enough, or that I'm not doing enough, or that I'm not measuring up? You got to find what works for you in your regulation process. I hope there's some silence in that process. I hope there's some meditation in this process. I hope there's some prayer. I hope that there is some self examination and amending of your relationship with yourself. I pray that as we are each creating in our minds this place of freedom, we recognize there's no judgment there. There's no criticism. There's no one wagging a finger saying you should do this, you should do that. There is acceptance. I love that word. There is acceptance. There is affirming. We have to affirm ourselves. We cannot wait for others to do it, even though it's nice. I love to be affirmed. I've been affirmed so much this past 2 weeks. I better feel good about myself. If other people are complimenting you and telling you how great you are, you better recognize it. But if you have feelings that what they see does not align with how you feel, then you know that's where the work needs to begin. Why is it so hard for you to believe that you are as great as everyone thinks you are? Why is that limitation in your mind? Why is it so hard for you to believe that love is present in many forms and it's all around you and you are deserving of it? That sounds like a restraint, denying that love is real and that it's present. Are you creating it in your life and also receiving it well? Take a deep breath if you're not, because I'm here to tell you it's very, very difficult to be free in your mind if you are not able to receive love. How can you? If people are telling you things and you don't believe it, you're going to have a battle going on in your brain. They keep telling me I'm the best thing since sliced bread, but I don't see it. I don't feel it. You're not going to be free unless you believe that you are great, that you are wonderful. I don't know too many people who are living without restraint and completely in a state of well being, but also telling themselves they're not enough and that they're broken and that they're damaged. Can't do it. Can't do it. You got to free yourself from that type of thinking. It's toxic. And nothing can grow in a toxic environment except for more toxicity. What is your relationship with yourself? And if you know that you may not have a great self concept about yourself, then that is where you will have to do the work. It's not for everyone else to do. You have to do it for yourself. It may not have been. And you are well within your rights to acknowledge that it wasn't done for you when you needed it. And so you may not know how to do it for yourself. And that is why the environments that you find yourself in are key. You got to be in some safe spaces. You have to be in loving places. You have to be listening to and absorbing loving, supportive information. I don't know why we think that the best way to train people, to mold people, and to watch them grow is by yelling at them, dehumanizing them, beating them. I don't know where that started. Now, I know that's what they do in some organizations in the military, but there is no need to break somebody down just to build them up, unless you are trying to build them up with your own dogma and your own belief system. Again, we are unique individuals. The fuel that keeps me running, I can't find it anywhere else. I've got to replenish it for myself. And I'll take some sunshine from others. But when it comes to me creating freedom, I have to create it in my mind for myself. And I cannot be in an environment that's not conducive to my growth and my well being. So if you know that you are in those places and spaces, the first thing that I would ask is that you clear your mind and ask yourself, why am I here? Can I do something about my mindset? Very similar to Father Mandela, who said all those years they imprisoned my body, but not my mind. So, for any of you who feel like you are in situations that you can't come out of yet, you have to get control of your mindset. Very similar to a 3-year old who has to be brought up in a way where they feel as though they can think for themselves. And we're going to carry that over into next month, where we really get to the point where the brain has developed to such a point that children who are 3 to 6 years old start to become so independent that they are going to have a foundation that stabilizes that great self esteem. Because again, if it gets damaged, if it gets disrupted at that part in the development, it carries over. And then here we are as adults sitting in silence, trying to find freedom in our minds, freedom in our minds, freedom in our minds, freedom in our bodies. Many of us are experiencing health challenges, which can also make you feel limited. I implore you to do whatever you can to find whatever methods can support you in feeling the best physically that you can. Do not think that because you are a particular age that that's it for you, it's over for you. You just got to live with the pain. We are not supposed to live with pain. I know that message seems to have been implanted in all of our brains. Well, I'm a particular age. I'm supposed to be in pain. We're not supposed to be in pain. That's the body saying something ain't right. Something is not going well. And we would like for it to be well. And so please go to the doctor. Please make sure you are doing whatever you can to make sure that your physical state of being is as well as it can be. Because I'm telling you, there's a mental and emotional component to it. And you can't feel well mentally if you don't feel well physically. And you can't feel well physically if you don't feel well mentally and emotionally. All these are all connected. And if we want to be in a complete well being, a state of well being, then we have to look at all of who we are. Look at all of the limitations, the bondage, anywhere you feel like there's a hard stop or resistance. What can I do about it? First and foremost, I can work on my mindset that I'm not going to be limited in my way of thinking. I'm going to be open and I'm going to be willing to explore different things in my life. I can start that by every single day creating an imagery of freedom in my mind and telling myself, this is my intention. I intend to feel free. I don't care what they're doing over there. I don't care what they're doing over there. I intend to be free. You may have something to say. You may have something to say. In here, we free. And all of the work that we've been doing this month around our relationship with shame, around our relationship with courage, around our relationship with the word no. Remind yourself that how you respond or how you react might be connected to something that you learned oh so long ago. But as an adult, we can tell our inner children, I got this now. We don't have to feel the way that we felt. We don't have to think the same way that we thought. We can create new pathways in here all of the time. The brain is constantly looking for new information. We have to give that new information by the way we see ourselves and the way that we see the world that we live in. If you are only looking through limitation, that's what you're going to see. If you say, well, the world is horrible, that's going to be your viewpoint. If you're going to say, I can't do nothing because, then that's going to be your viewpoint. You have just spoken it into existence. So start to speak as free people speak. I have no limitations. The world is open wide for me, and I am ready to receive all things for my highest good. I live an abundant life full of great and loving relationships. That is what I see. I trust that we will continue to work at that. It's not something that you can say once and then all things are changed, but I'm telling you, the more you acknowledge it, the more you'll see it. I had a conversation with my daughter yesterday. I said, people have been really, really loving to me in the past couple of days. And she was like, people are always nice to you. And I thought about it. I was like, no, they're not. And then I thought about it some more. I'm like, people are always nice to me. I don't even pay attention anymore to the people who are not, or the people who think they're doing stuff to hurt me, harm. Like, I don't even know why would you do that? I don't know. But the more I focus on love, that the more I see it, the more I receive it, the more I allow myself to receive it, the more it is available. I'm telling you, it is a mindset that is foundationally built on freedom. I don't want to be constantly thinking about who loves me, who likes me. I don't have time. I don't have time. All I want to think is how good life is and how wonderful it continues to be. But I had to free myself from those ways of thinking that kept me limited, because all I wanted to see was the negativity. All I wanted to point out was the negativity. All I wanted to talk about was the negativity. It's still there. I see it, but it doesn't get my energy in the way that it used to, because I've decided that being at peace, being free, not having a pit in my stomach, not having to worry about what day it is. Like some people dread Sunday because they have to go to work Monday. I can't wait to get to work tomorrow. I can't wait to do more work. I love this life that I am creating, and love in life is also loving me back in return, because I have chosen to be free from those limited ways of thinking and being. But I had to free my little people because they were showing up. I don't think we're good enough to do that. I don't know if we could do that right. And I recognize, again, those are things that I learned or heard a long time ago when I wasn't mature enough to process the information. I'm quite mature now, and so I know better. I'm going to guide myself in a different direction. And it's so much more pleasurable than living with limitation. Let me tell you. Anytime I hear it, I'm like, ugh, ugh, not even something I want to engage in. And so, if that is something that you want to experience more of, as always, you can schedule some office hours with me, and I guarantee you, I'm going to show you just how free you really are. If you are having challenges with seeing things that way, thinking that way, behaving that way, feeling that way, call me and let's have a conversation. At my website, there is a link for office hours. My calendar is there. Book yourself 60 minutes and we can talk about it. Or join the Evolve community. It's a subscription based plan where every month we do healing activities. There's more in depth inner child work as we get into the different developmental stages. As we become more independent, we're going to be doing some activities. Hopefully, I'll be able to see some of you. I know one of the limitations that I don't like is being stuck here in this one state. I'm trying to travel to all places where everyone is. I want to come to wherever you are so we can play like little kids and feed our inner children. And the Evolve community is one place that we can talk about that and discuss that. I'm starting something new next week. I'm going to be posting it very soon. We're going to be I'm going to be having conversations with individuals that I have met who are working their wellness. I mean, working their wellness, that have demonstrated that they were doing something. They recognized that it wasn't what was best for them, and they decided to do something else. And now it has flourished into something great. Next Wednesday at 6 p.m., I'm going to do Facebook and YouTube. I was just going to do Facebook, but I'm going to do both platforms, Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. next Wednesday. And hopefully it's a continuous thing. So I might be emailing some of you to also join me on a Wednesday evening. Oh, thank you, Giselle. You know I'm going to contact you, Giselle, because you have such a wealth of information. So I'm gonna be contacting you, and maybe you can join me live to talk about how you're working your wellness. Let's see what else is going on. Um, April is coming up. I'm an April baby, so I'm going to be a mess from April 1st all the way to the end. I make no apologies. My birthday is in April, and it is one of my favorite times of year. We'll be talking about the 3-year-old to 6-year-old developmental stage. Again, if you join the Evolve community, then you will have all of the activities from conception up into whatever developmental area we happen to be working on. So that's my spiel for Sunday. I am going to go play with grandbaby girl. Like a 3-year-old, my inner children are getting to play with her current child. And it has been such a blessing to be able to do these on Sundays. I just said to my daughter, I was like, why do I do this? And she was like, well, people show up. I said, and I am greater for it. I really am greater for your participation. I love it. I love it. I love it. It is one of those things that affirms me. It is one of those things that reassures me. It is one of those things that helps me regulate, just like a 3-year-old, so that I don't have to wait for a gold star or someone to pat me on the head. I know that I'm in the right direction because I'm talking to like minded individuals, and I love y'all for showing up. Thank you. Have an amazing and free rest of your Sunday. And we'll be back here next Sunday. Love y'all. Bye.